Welcome to Living Grounded, Village's weekly Q&A, where you can ask anonymous questions about God, the Bible, life with Jesus, and all things in between. Hello, welcome to Living Grounded. I'm Ella. I'm here with Tim.
Hello.
Today we're talking about enjoying life this side of eternity, different gospel accounts, and division in the church. On Sunday, Gary preached for us from Exodus, and we saw that just as God provided for Israel in the wilderness, he has provided everything that we need for our journey home in Jesus. Jesus is our sustenance, our daily provision. If you weren't there, you can have a listen to that in the Village app. Let's get started. Our first question is, what are some markers to look out for that signify we've made this life and place our home? And what are some things we can do to make sure we don't get too comfy while still enjoying the life God has given us?
Yeah, and you know, just to add to the context, I guess, of the question from that is connected to Sunday, you know, the correlation is, the picture is that Israel in the wilderness does kind of correspond to the life that Christians now live. We are in a waiting time, a time before the promised land. So we're not to live as if this life is the destination. We're in the in-between time. We're pilgrims on the way, we sang, which is a lovely way of capturing it. And that should change how you live. We're not meant to invest in this earth as if it's the final destination. Yeah. Now I want to be a bit careful. I'm gonna, you know, they write books on this sort of question, and we could spend a long time on it. I don't want to spend too long on it. I do want to be mindful of different person's context. I'm going to kind of speak more to the average person, you know, to the person that maybe doesn't have, let's say, huge medical issues or significant family burdens that they might be responsible for. You do need to do a little bit of work to think through this for yourself. I'm just going to give you a couple of thoughts and markers and stuff like that. But let's start with that marker. What are some markers maybe? How would we know that maybe our orientation is a little bit skewed, that we have started to invest too much in this life rather than living it the way that God meant to live as on the way? And, you know, there'd be tons of these, right? And most of them would revolve around how we use our time, how we use our money, how we use our energy that God's given us. Our beliefs and our priorities are reflected usually in our behaviors. Let's start with, I guess, probably a more abstract, and then we'll move to some really concrete things. I wonder what you would say. I wonder what kind of conjures into your mind when I say something like, what does your dream life look like? I mean, what would you describe the life that you're hoping for now in this time, in the next however many decades that God might give you? And you know, we can sum that up in I want to be really happy, right? Like that's what I think most people would say now. I just want to be happy. I want to be satisfied. Okay, fine. But what does that look like? Now, is it, you know, when you picture that, is it, I've got a nice house, a job that pays really well, where I don't have to work too much, but just kind of enough to love going to work, to feel really satisfied at work. I'd have this, you know, perfect work-life balance, and I got a family and this many number of children, all this sort of stuff. Okay. I wonder if that's what comes to your mind. Now, all of those things are sin. Not all of those things are wrong. But when we conjure up that picture, from a biblical point of view, something is missing. It's about what's missing. It's about who is at the center. It's also about misunderstanding what true satisfaction looks like in the place and time that God's put us. So, you know, listen to Listen to Titus 2, for instance. This is just one passage that I kind of picked out as could have been a number of them. But Titus 2, you've got verse 11, "For the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people. It teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright and godly lives in this present age, while we wait for the blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our God, our great God and Saviour Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all wickedness, to purify for himself a people that are his very own, eager to do what is good." So you get a kind of a shape there, right, of things, that our life isn't about pursuing what I think in lots of that stuff that Paul would talk about. No, that's what the world seeks after. That's what the world would say is the way to find satisfaction and pleasure. But actually the Christian sees, and with Jesus our model and the apostles and so on, that actually the greatest joy and satisfaction in life comes from doing good, eager to do what is good. From another way that Paul will put it in Timothy is advancing God's work in the world. So it's not that it's wrong to desire a family, but here's the question: what for? What do you want a family for? To make my life complete, so that I've got children to look after me when I'm older, well, just so I fit in, that's what everyone else is doing? Well, no. Godliness is that you want a family so that you can do good to them, so that you can raise children in the Lord, teaching them his ways, showing them how to serve others, so that more people would see God's goodness through your parenting and through your children, honouring God. There's a very different way of thinking about the dream of your life. It's not wrong to want a work-life balance, but again, what for? Just so that I can spend more hours playing video games, or so that I can go on more hikes, or surf. Just surf whenever I want. No. God hasn't put you here in the wilderness in this point for that. There will come a time where you will have the best work-life balance ever known in the new creation. But for now, it's, to use Paul's language, it's about pouring ourselves out for the sake of others. We need rest. We need a balance to that, because not many of us can kind of do that constantly. So we need to be restored. But our purpose is to do good to others, to advance God's work in the world, to serve. And so that's a very different shape of thinking about our dream. Is the dream of life, the shape of it, I want to live like Jesus. I want to honour Jesus. I want the shape of my life to be like Jesus. And for me, I reckon that could look like having a family, not having a job that forces me to kind of work stupid hours so that I can serve others in this way, or this way. And that can take different shapes. But you see what the orientation is. You see what the you see what the center is. Tailor your dream according to the time that you're living. Pour yourself out now for God, because this life isn't the destination. You've got an eternity to come.
What might be some other markers?
Yeah, so I guess some more concrete ones, like, again, around time, money, energy. I think that's the center. What you do with your time. I reckon if you're watching 2 hours a day of entertainment, whether that's whatever screen that you might find that on, whether it's socials or whatever, if you're doing that, but you can't find 10 minutes a day to read your Bible and pray, I reckon something's gone on there. Now, this isn't simple, but what's the natural objection that I think comes to mind when I say something like that? Like, be careful if you're watching 2 hours of Netflix versus you can't even open your Bible for 10 minutes. The thing that goes on in my head even is, yeah, but one's heaps harder than the other. You can't just go, this is the same. But that actually reveals the very point. What's the thing? One is really comfortable to do. It's easy. None of us, it's hard to sit down and watch a show or to spend 30, 40, 50 minutes reeling and going. Scrolling, is that what the young people call it? That's easy. That's comfortable. Opening the scriptures, praying, that's uncomfortable. What have we chosen? We choose comfort. We're to choose healthy discomfort. And that's what we're talking about here. Choosing mindless comfort, actually, what does it do? It encourages us, but in a very particular way, it encourages us to pursue more comfort. It encourages us to whether it's through the advertising or whether it's through what we're seeing in the TV shows. You ever notice this, that most TV dramas take place in upper middle class context? Why is that? Because you're there not just going, oh, the drama's interesting, but also like, oh, I wish I had a home like they had. Oh, I wish I could not think about money as much as they don't seem to think about money. You know what I mean? Like, it's drawing you into wanting this world and desiring this world more than it's, what do the scriptures do? When we open the scriptures and we engage with them and we think and reflect on them when we're in prayer, what does that have the potential to do? Well, to remind us the other way, not of worldly pleasures, but of our great hope in eternity, of what we have in God, of what it looks like to follow Jesus, and actually that it changes our desires. So we just need to see that the great danger of things like entertainment is it has hooks, and I reckon the more we engage in that stuff, that's a marker that we've given into the comfort of this time now, rather than fighting that and choosing to set our eyes on eternity. So why not do something confronting? Why not actually sit down and think about how much time you've spent on entertainment this week? In the last 7 days, how many hours on socials? In the last 7 days, how many hours on socials? On TV shows and on movies? How many hours on sport? How many minutes in the scriptures and in prayer? Do you need to make a change? Please, if you need help with that, let me know. Keen to support that. Powerful.
Are there any other places?
Let me give you one or two more. Holidays. How much money do you spend on holidays? Holidays are not a bad thing. We need rest and so on. But do you spend more money on holidays than you give? If you added up, the last 5 years, or just this year even. And I'm not talking about, I gave $1 more than I spent on holidays this year. Personally, I would hope that we always give about 5 to 10 times the amount we spend on holidays. And we deliberately make our holidays cheaper because that means that we're able to give more. Now, we've also gone on 1 or 2 holidays that have been more expensive. I'm not saying you can never do that. But I am saying, in terms of the frame of this question, how do we know whether we've kind of found our comfort in this life or the one to come? If we're spending a ton of money on holidays, I think that's a sign that we're trying to experience. Why are we doing that? Well, I want to experience everything that there is to have in this life. I want to experience more of what there is to have in this life. Yes. And again, we're pulled into that by all these things. But understand, you're going to have an eternity to experience all of these things. Now is the time to accept some discomfort in that, to accept missing out on some of these things. We live in the wilderness. In the barren wilderness is where we're meant to live. Don't try and live in the promised land now, is the point. So holidays aren't wrong. Rest is good. But you'll get to do that for eternity. We could say a number of these things with money. How you spend your money reflects your priorities. It reflects the orientation of your life. Does your budget suggest, not just in holidays, but maybe also in other things like activities? Does it suggest that your priority is advancing God's work, doing good to others, or does it suggest that you're making a nest here and trying to make this life as good as it can be, just like the rest of the world is? Yeah.
So what about the second part of the question? What are some things we can do to make sure we don't get too comfy while still enjoying the life God has given us?
Yeah, well, before I come to a few simple things we can do, I won't spend heaps long on this question, but can I just point out there is a danger in the false dichotomy of the question. And I think Christians, we really think this. We go, all right, I've got to suffer a bit, but can I enjoy some things as well? You know, and again, who is the most joyful man to ever live? I would argue it's Jesus. Jesus is the most joyful man, and he's joyful because in the midst of his suffering, he's doing it for his Father, and he's doing it to save God's people. He is eager to do good, and he's joyful that he gets to do good, even though his life, from a worldly perspective, sucks. He has nothing, no possessions. He hasn't got a place to rest his head. He's crucified on a cross. When you think about Paul, you listen to Philippians 1, I won't turn there, but Philippians 1, Paul talks about the joy that he has as he's thinking about God's people and what's going on for them and so on. Where is Paul when he's talking about that joy? He's in prison. He is suffering on God's behalf, but he's joyful. Here's the thing we need to keep remembering, and I testify this to you as someone who has been lived a selfish life and lived for themselves and tried to add. There is so much more joy in serving and living for others, in following the pattern of Jesus and the pattern of Paul. There is more joy to be found than there is on being able to spend all your money on takeaway or go on amazing holidays or whatever it might be, or using your time for those leisure activities. Serving has a deeper joy to it. So let's keep in mind that. But what are some things that you can do? First of all, the first thing that you need to do is just constantly be reminded of this. Again, Netflix and so on is going to keep telling you that this is not true. You need to hear the truth from the word of the mouth of God. And that means being in the scriptures more regularly, being in prayer, listening to sermons, reading books that counteract the message of the world. Again, if you're imbibing hours of the world telling you, invest now in this place, you need to push back against that. And the only way that's going to get pushed back against is through the scriptures, through being reminded. So do that and be in prayer for that. Ask God, help me to see this, Lord. Help me to do the thing that I'm struggling to do, the hard thing that I'm struggling to do. And we all feel it, okay? We know that I know that it's hard. It is hard to give up on some of these things or to be convinced that it's not worth, that it's worth giving up many of these things. So ask for God's help. You need his strength to do that. But some other ways, make a budget. When you are just kind of spontaneously spending money, you will probably do it according to the pattern of this world. You will do it according to your priorities. Now, for some of us, God has shaped us and changed us so much that actually your spontaneousness will be fine because you will give according to your priorities. In fact, your nature might already be shaped enough by God that you won't spend money on yourself and you will just spend money on others. I know people like that. But for many others of us, that transformation hasn't occurred yet. And so you'll live according to worldly habits, according to the pattern of the world. The way to counteract that is to be more deliberate and intentional about what you do with your money. Make a budget so that you can see, so that you can live according to it. Okay, there's nothing wrong with takeaway as such. But if I'm eating 4 meals takeaway a week, spending $150 a week on takeaway, meanwhile I give about 50 to church and to other things, again, there's a problem. You'll see it when you've got a budget. When you go, okay, my takeaway budget is I eat, well, to be honest, for my family, it's once a month. When that's what our budget is, then you can go, okay, well, that looks right. I can see it on paper. That looks healthy. That looks good. That my giving is actually way outweighing whatever I'd spend on myself. Again, take into mind your own personal context. There's different things there. But same with holidays and so on. Activities budget. I've got budgeted a game of golf a week. That's great. That's good for me. That's on, but that's healthy and I can see it in the budget that I'm not investing too much in this world by going, I'm going to play a game of golf every week. And yeah, that's going to cost me in some other areas, but that's fine because that's what I'm doing. So that's one way, the budget. Boundaries are another way to do it. Boundaries I've put, limit yourself to something like no more than one TV show a day. Go, hey, I'm going to enjoy a TV show a day, that's okay, but I'm not going to indulge in that and go into mindless comfort in it. I've put a timer on my Facebook, 15 minutes a day, and then it locks. On the flip side, so there's boundaries. On the flip side, make commitments. I'm going to commit to serving others 2 hours per week in various forms. So I'm going to read 2 pages of a healthy Christian book that's going to help me think the way that I should be shaped. I'm going to commit to praying for 3 non-Christians a day. Make good commitments. These will help you. Make a decision to pursue, and in all of these things, make a decision to pursue what the world would call discomfort. To do good instead of trying to make yourself more comfortable in this life. That's the ultimate principle. Yeah.
Yeah, helpful. Thanks for listening. Is there anything coming up this week?
I don't think so, other than we just keep preaching through Exodus.
Yeah.
Look, good times gathering as God's people.
Yeah. Have a great week. We'll see you Sunday.
Ciao.